It's Friday. You know what that means here on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. We are brought to you by Rival Fantasy. I'm Clay Link of RotoWire here with FSWA Hall of Famer Todd Zola. It is Eury Perez Day. Happy Eury Perez Day to all. And happy Tears of the Kingdom Day to those who celebrate. It's kind of a weird footnote, footnote in history that Perez debuting on a new Zelda day. Todd, what's up with you, man?
I get one of those two references.
Yeah, you ever played The Legend of Zelda growing up?
Do I look like? No, I am. No,
I guess not. Maybe
I was
like
I'm a Tetris guy. No, I never.
I like Tetris too. Tetris is still. I mean, there was a new Tetris game not too long ago.
Oh no! Don't tell me that.
It still holds up.
Like I need another distraction. No, I can talk informatively on Eury Perez. So we'll leave the Zelda, even though it's similar last name or whatever, to others.
Yeah, it's funny. Everybody when I was growing up was always, "Hey, Link, you must love Zelda." And I was kind of like, I was never a big Zelda kid. I was more, playing like WCW NWO Revenge, right? But I've grown in, like, Breath of the Wild was amazing, and I've grown to love the franchise. So how wrong I was. But anyway, yeah, Eury Perez will always be a trivia note that he debuted on the day Tears of the Kingdom came out. He will be facing my Reds, and I love prospects, and some of these pitchers just been getting lit up, but I expect good things from him. He's one of the top prospects in the game.
Right. Well, I mean, the analogy I used on the radio before, are we getting Bryce Miller or are we getting Mason Miller? And James pointed out that's not even wide enough of a range of possibilities. You can go even worse than that. So, I mean, Perez's pedigree is higher than both, I would think. 20 years old. You can't really find a flaw other than he just doesn't have much of a track record. 6'8", right? So the story is usually, can he repeat his delivery? Haven't heard a whole lot of talk about that. He's not walking many. So I think you're going to be optimistic, but I'm not paying as much. I'm not paying what it's going to take in FAAB. I don't believe anyway, and maybe that's a bad thing, but it's still hard to pitch in MLB. And I think we got to, jokes about the Reds aside, is there a better first game to debut
than home against the Reds? Yeah. Probably not. If it were in Great American Ballpark, it might be a little different story. Bart in the chat says that the FAAB price will be fun. Basically $40 in FAAB per K that Eury Perez gets tonight. He went for 36 out of 100 last night in the RotoWire Stake League to Eric Halterman. So Halterman dropping the budget down and opening up the wallet to get Eury Perez. I think that's a little bit more than I paid for Gavin Stone, but I'd rather have Perez at this point. Although I'm holding Gavin Stone. So
see, you mentioned Eric. We do the MLB show, but we pre-record. Everybody knows this, so I'm not, don't tell anybody. We let it be known. But the point being, we're doing a show tomorrow that we already recorded, and neither of us know how Perez did tonight. So we got to mention it. You can't not mention him. So I mean, I didn't realize that Eric had a vested interest in their performance, if you will. But yeah, no. So a lot of interesting. I mean, we'll talk about pitching in a moment, but we got Max Scherzer, right? Or knock on wood, we got Max Scherzer, James Paxton. A lot going on in pitching tonight. I mean, we're going to do 2 starts later, but it's an interesting night as far as pitching goes.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about tonight's slate when we talk Rival Fantasy.
Yeah.
It'll be fun. We had another question in the chat wondering if the Marlins are going to Taj Bradley Eury Perez or if he's here for the long haul. Hard to say, but I mean, he was dominating at Double-A.
Taj Bradley is Taj Bradley himself. He's not doing so well in the minors.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I mean, I understand what you're trying to say, but some of these analogies sometimes, just ask the question: Are they gonna, yank Perez up and down? the opening is there, but how many innings do you want to give a 20-year-old? So
he threw what, like less than 80 last year, I want to say.
Yeah.
Double
So
check.
I think we're going to see. I mean, all right. I mean, maybe this answers the question. Maybe it doesn't. I put in the site projection for Eury Perez. I believe I gave him 11 starts. I can't tell you if it'll be the next 11 games or 11 games between now and the end of the season, but that's what I gave Perez, was 11 more starts.
11 starts at the big league level.
Right.
That sounds about right.
It's a crapshoot. It's a guess.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's somewhat of a, they shut him down early, or, this, that, the other thing. But I'm not giving him, 18 or 19. But I don't think it's just 2 or 3 and he's gone either. So calling up the depth chart now. Trevor Rogers and Johnny Cueto are out. Cueto's just Cueto. I'm not, if Perez is pitching well, he stays. Braxton Garrett hasn't pitched well. Brian Hoeing hasn't pitched well. The opportunity is certainly there. Are we at a point yet where we can just dismiss the Marlins from the wild card? Maybe, but I don't know.
Who's been maybe the worst signing of the offseason was Gene Segura. Not the worst, but my God, he's been brutal.
Yeah.
That hasn't worked out for them.
So the Marlins are 19-19. No, you know what? I mean, at least on paper, you can't dismiss them from the wild card.
No, if they're 500.
They're in the heat of the wild card right now. Yeah, that's the thing now. 500. NL East isn't quite like the AL East as far as top to bottom, because the Nationals are a basement team. Everybody in the AL East over 500. But the Marlins are in the thick of it, and so what do you do with Perez? You slow play him so he's around for the playoffs? Is that way too far in advance thinking? I think Perez is going to get a couple of outings here, but I don't know that I'd write him down for 120 innings.
Right. So he threw a total of 77 innings last year. Yeah. Eury Perez. That's across 18 starts between single A and double A. And this year he's made 6 starts at double A. So I think, 11 more starts would basically put him on par with what he did last year. And maybe there's some upside from that number, but I do think it's probably best to kind of conservatively say, 11, 12, 13 starts.
Those 11 starts assumes he's in the minors too.
That he goes back to the minors?
Yeah. I mean, that was my assumption, was that if it's not the only 11 games he plays aren't the 11 up here. That's just my assumption. I don't think he's going to pitch 11 straight and then the season ends. So
you think he'll maybe pitch a few, maybe head back when they don't need a 5th starter for a while, or
perhaps
eventually
around the All-Star break, you can monitor the innings a little easier that way. I don't know. It could be completely wrong.
I think that's a wise landing point for his projection.
Right.
So thanks for jumping in yesterday when I messaged you, and you were all over the Eury Perez projection. Other pickups last night in the RotoWire Stake League. Let's take a look here. Jesus Sanchez for 14. He's been playing all right. JP France, I know, picked up in a lot of leagues last week. He goes for 12 here. Gregory Soto for 7. Jose Alvarado, 0 walks so far, but he's hurt. It doesn't sound like he's expecting a log absence.
Right.
Gregory Soto and Craig Kimbrell maybe in the meantime. Brayan Bello for 7. Really like what I've seen from Bello recently.
He's throwing the slider, the third pitch that we're all been waiting on. Relative, forget the fact. Yes, I'm a Red Sox fan, but relative to some of those other bids, 7 for Bello seems pretty darn nice.
Yeah, it really does. So that was one where, he put up those stinkers early, but he's really kind of done a 180 last few starts anyway. Casey Schmidt. What a start for him. It's not a player that I really had much hope for, but he is 8 for 12 so far. Is that good, Todd? 8 for 12, 2 homers.
Yeah.
And only 1 strikeout.
Yeah, he's on a pace to hit 600. Yeah,
if he hits 667 the rest of the way.
Yeah. Now, we talked about him a little bit on the radio earlier. All right, it's just right now he's the flavor of the month. David Villar earlier. It's really hard to number scout Schmidt because he's been a year to advance for his level. So I know that there's MLEs that are supposed to normalize that, but I think the variance is pretty high. So you just can't. Well, he hit 18 homers, 2 years ago. Yeah, well, that's a 23-year-old against single A pitching, So it's hard to gauge.
Mm-hmm. Chase Silseth picked up. I think that's pretty interesting when I'm looking at who he lines up to face here. So he will face at Baltimore next week.
This is a brilliant pickup, says the guy that drafted him as a minor leaguer in the RotoWire league, just because I was looking for. I think we've talked about this. Strategically, it gets to a point where do you draft lesser ranked minor leaguers that have a chance to help you this year, or do you go for the future? So I was at a point where, they're all long shots. Silseth, I think he's going to pitch this year. So I grabbed him, even though there were higher ranked players. So rooting for Silseth to get in rotation so I could activate him.
Orlando Arcia for 6 to Halterman. And then this one, I just missed out on him by maybe not a tiebreaker. Must have been just by a buck. Mark Leiter for 5. He's been pitching really well for the Cubs. And I kind of needed a closer to replace Alvarado. I'll just have to wait. Hopefully get Alvarado back next week. Nick Prado for 4. Alex Call for 4. And Manuel Valdez for 4. Christian Encarnacion Strand for 3.
Of those fours,
who
was one?
Alex Call, Nick Prado.
Yeah, I like Prado
and Manuel Valdez.
I like them all, but I like Prado. I think there's an opening at least to hit against right-handers.
Eddie Rosario for 3, Hanser Alberto for 3, and so I didn't get Mark Leiter, but I did get Ian Hamilton. I know, I dropped Trevor Larnach, who got sent down, so I kind of had some flexibility to just pick somebody up. And while we all love Michael King, Ian Hamilton got a save recently, and I know Aaron Boone likes him as an option if Clay Holmes can't get the job done.
Well, I don't think you even have to go that route. I think that Boone is showing kind of the opposite. He's showing that he's going to use Clay Holmes when the meat of the batting order. That's when Hamilton got his save, Holmes was brought in the 8th to face the heart of whatever I forget what team it was, the heart of their order.
Yeah.
So
Hamilton's pitched well.
Right. So the Kings and the Hamiltons could be getting that. I mean, this isn't that they don't trust Holmes. It's they really trust him to be used when the game is on the line in the 7th or 8th. And that's when Hamilton and King can chip in. These guys are really nice if you're in save and hold leagues, because you're going to get a hold regardless if he happens to get a save. I don't think your stake league does that though, does it?
No, not the stake league. I'm not going to start him this week, but because they did give Clay Holmes the vote of confidence, but it's a stash, a spec on a possible closer eventually. Let's see who else. JJ Bleday, and Uncle Ted, a friend of the show, mentioned him in the chat. That JJ Bleday is balling. I picked him up in the main event last week just because my team is crap and I needed somebody, and looks like they're at least going to give him a look. Opportunity is on Bleday's side at least.
Yes, no, I agree. And I also agree with the comment that you do not drop Alex Bregman for a flat, for a what have you done for me lately guy. This is not,
or a stash spec like Ellie De La Cruz.
I'm not a huge Bregman fan, but he's not a fungible end game player.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I know I don't mean to put you on the spot, but do you know what your Bleday projection looks like? How you're kind of valuing Bleday? Is he like a mixed league worthy guy?
I think he is.
Yeah.
And given you're going to have a couple of platoon type players in a mixed league, and it's the A's, which, you know what? The A's have a better offense than the Astros, at least right now. I know that's not probably how it's going to end, but right now
it sounds ridiculous.
I was writing up I forget what pitcher it was, but I wanted to say, well, he held the Astros to blah blah blah. and now he gets the Athletics. Then I looked at their respective WOBAs. It's like, wow, the Athletics have a better WOBA than Houston. So
and Brent Rooker's been insane.
Yeah, no, but to answer your question, I think Bleday is a 15-team mixed guy, mainly because at least when I look at him a week or two ago, he was sitting at the top of the order.
Yeah. I know this doesn't necessarily mean a ton because he's already been traded by the team that drafted him, but ton of draft pedigree for Bleday, 4th overall pick in 2019. And why not? What does this team have to lose by seeing what he's got?
Well,
great start for him, by the way. 11 for 32 with 3 homers.
They wanted him. Well, he had an opportunity to break camp. He just didn't earn it.
Mm-hmm.
So he went down to the minors and he earned it. You know, you like to see that. You like to. I don't know if we'll talk about the Atlanta pitching. We'll probably talk about him a bit when we get to the 2 starts. But what you don't like is when Dylan Dodd and mental block the other guy,
Schuster.
Jared Schuster. You don't like the fact they didn't go down at Gwinnett and shove.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they both struggled down there. You kind of like to have seen, I'm going to show them and pitch really well. They did not do that. Bleday went down, took the demotion, if you will, in stride, and earned his way back up to the major leagues with a 1072 OPS. All right, Vegas is a good place to hit, but you still got to do it.
Yeah, Vegas is a launching pad, but 7 homers in 25 games. Have
you ever been there? Did you ever?
No, not to the Aviators part.
I think it was an FSTA meeting.
Oh yeah.
Just because everybody else is going gambling, and I don't think it would have been an FBC, so it had to be an FSTA meeting back in the day. But when it was TA and when I used to go, yeah. So who was it? Brent. I think I went with the HQ guys. I think I went either Brent or Brent and Ray. It's like, we don't. You want to play blackjack? You want to go watch I'll watch a AAA game. So we went to the game. It was pretty fun.
Yeah, that sounds fun. Maybe the A's will play there for a year or 2. That would be pretty wacky for offense. Yeah, those numbers are inflated certainly by the Vegas and just the PCL, Pacific Coast League in general. But one thing the environment can't really boost or fake, maybe it could boost a little bit if you could argue that, but you can't really fake a 20 to 15 walk decay. I mean, 5 more walks than strikeouts in his 25 games, showing a lot of patience. And when pitchers put the ball in the zone, he's been able to capitalize. So
and
I like him as a pickup for sure.
And Oakland is finding a way to use both him and Ruiz in the same lineup, which we weren't sure about coming in to the season. We thought it was either or. And in that big outfield, you could use 2 center fielders, right? I mean, you could use 3 with Laureano. So I think you can get away with an outfield of Ruiz, Bleday, and Laureano.
Jordan Diaz of that Oakland team, random 3-homer game, probably the most random 3-homer game since that 4-homer game by
Mark Whitten.
No, I was thinking of the Red. I want to say Skip Schumacher. I know that's not who it is. Now I'm blanking on his. Oh, Scooter Gennett.
Okay,
but it was a 4-homer game for Scooter. That was the most random thing. That was the most juiced ball thing ever.
Yeah, but
Scooter Gennett 4-homer game.
I don't know that Scooter Gennett and Skip Schumacher were ever seen in the same room. So it could have been Shoemaker trying to.
Both former Reds.
He's managing right now. He's the Miami
he's
manager,
the Marlins.
Right? Yeah.
I like Skip Schumacher. He was a fun Red.
Yeah.
Zach McKinstry's been leading off some for the Tigers. Yeah, he goes for.
You should mention real quick that we've got a function on the site.
Batting order changes
that tells us a lot of this information.
That was a great idea of the guys to just, because we make all those batting order changes every day, but to compile those and put those on the front end was a great idea. So shout out to the guys, tech crew, and Aaron Quinn maybe, but that's great. And I think thanks to you, Todd, we now have the ability to download our default batting orders. So
I mean,
shout out to you on the call on that.
Well, we love people to use our DFS tools. There's no doubt, optimizer, but there's some stubborn dolts like me that like to, and I know others too, that like to kind of do things on their own, and to be able to dump the default lineups into my little black box that I'd like to call it a gold box, but it's not really so golden right now. I call it the Fungo. Did I tell you why I call it the Fungo?
Because it's like the bat, but it
breaks under pressure. It's not as robust and it breaks under pressure.
Not as strong.
Yeah, not as strong as the bat. So I call mine the Fungo. But anyway,
I respect that.
It's all right. It took me 20 minutes to download them by hand. Now I hit a button, dump them in, and I have the default batting orders. And it also, I just kind of, and what Peter Schenke suggested about having a longer list of previous batting orders helps, because I mean, I'm sure you help out in that area. All right, there's some knee-jerk reactions to batting orders because, one game and you're not really sure. But there are some teams, as you know, that just you can't make a default batting order because there isn't one.
Yeah, we try our best.
But... Yeah, well, right. And that's what having the extended version of who's been batting where over the past couple of weeks, it comes in handy. I like to look at the Sunday, and do they always mix it up on Sundays? Day after night game. So having the extended
7 days there.
Yeah, it gives you a little
Last
bit more.
7.
More than 7. Yeah. Anyway, Peter,
but yeah, I just wanted to thank you because you sent me that. I sent that I just kind of did the shift command 4 screen grab of your question, sent it to the tech team, and they had that up like the next day.
Do they know anything about dentistry?
I don't know if the tech team can save you there, but
okay.
I wish. But no, I thought that was a great idea. Yeah, you can now download our default orders as .csv files. Okay, Luis Ortiz of Pittsburgh. He struggled, but I do like the skills. He goes for only $1. Pavin Smith. These are all $0 from here. Pavin Smith, Matt Carpenter, Michael Lorenzen, Jordan Westberg, Josh Sabors, Josh Winkowski, and Royce Lewis. So that'll do it for pickups, unless you have anybody else on your mind.
No, let's hit a quick question since we're hitting questions, then we can move on. Last one, would I drop either Brandon Lau or Nolan Gorman for Santander? I drop Gorman at this point. I'm not dropping Lau even though he's in a slump. Maybe it's because I really like Santander, and he shouldn't even be available in a league if you're asking with those names. But Gorman's losing playing time, at least for now, with Contreras jumping around. So I would make that. I would prefer Santander over Gorman straight up, without losing playing time. Maybe that's just me.
This has not really been my year so far. I still a lot of time to turn it around, but dead last in Tout Wars right now by a pretty good margin. And, I was looking at one team, and I had Santander on my bench last week when he would hit like 400 with 3 homers or whatever. So, yes, Santander should be rostered, and I think despite the slow start, he should be active most of the time, and so that you're not leaving a bunch of stats on your bench like I did. All right, let's get into Rival Fantasy for the week, Todd. A new sponsor of the podcast. We appreciate their sponsorship, of course. And we're having some fun with this new fantasy game that they're bringing to the table. You and I have been mostly doing the what is it called? I'm sorry. The
fantasy book.
The fantasy book. That's what it was. I had first loaded up the challenges, but yeah, you go to Fantasy Book MLB, you take the over, the under on a player's projected point total, and this is fun. Now, Todd, did you have a starting point in mind? We've really been focusing on the pitchers primarily.
Well, last week, those who listened last week, you're welcome. Every guy I mentioned hit, and I did some hedges, and I'm not retiring, but I did good last week. Of course, I did some.
All your picks hit last week?
Yeah, I did some midweek play this week, and as we were joking off air, Michael Walker's game out of nowhere cost me from taking down from tens of dollars. So a bummer for that. But I've been talking a lot about pitching, so I thought I'd switch it up this week, and I'm gonna play pitchers tonight. But I thought I would talk about, or at least publicly over the podcast, do some hitters. Maybe it's a little bit cheating because I'm gonna pick on Coors Field. Now in DFS, you may avoid fade hitters because of rostership issues, but since that's not a problem here, you don't care how many other people in the contest are choosing a player in Coors Field. It doesn't matter. I'm just more comfortable yeah, Coors Field is a good place to play. So I'm going with Trey Turner, who I think Coors Field might be his panacea, and Bryce Harper coming back to relieve some of the pressure, because Turner's, I don't know for sure, but and I'm going to hat tip to Eric Halterman for talking about him on our Saturday show about this, but his chase rate is way up, his strikeouts are up, and it looks like he's been pressing in Harper's absence. So I'm taking Trey Turner to go over 8.7 points. I have him for like 11 or 12. JT Realmuto, same lineup, same pitcher, both against Austin Gomber, platoon advantage. So I like JT Realmuto to go over his 8.2 points. And I'm taking Byron Buxton to he's got Drew Smyly. And I don't know the splits for Smyly, but I generally think that you play lefty-righty as much as you can. So, and one of the things about Buxton is I do DFS projections, if you will. So what I care about is that day. And he is Buxton is almost always near the top. It's a reminder of how good he is, but he just gets penalized in a year-long league because we have to hedge for injuries on a per plate appearance basis. And he's running a little bit this year, so he's still one of the best players in the game.
I got you. So you're an optimist tonight. You're taking the over on all of Trey Turner, JT Realmuto, and Byron Buxton. Huh?
Yeah, pitching, I'll take the under because I think it's a smarter bet. If I'm going to take the over, I want to root for these guys. So I want to turn on the Coors game, and I'm gonna root for these guys to get hits. So yeah, I'm gonna I even though the under is probably a better bet, a better try, just because the odds are better. Because it's more things can go wrong than can go right. So it's almost always better to take the under. But I want to win some money, but I also part of this is to have a little fun.
Yeah, of course. I totally hear that. Okay, well, sometimes I get thrown off by some of the Saturday starters being bunched in here, so I'm gonna have to change one of mine here real quick. Yeah. But I'm gonna kind of piggyback a little bit off what you were doing there, and just go with the Phillies starter and Taijuan Walker. I expect them to, the Phillies to hit a little bit, but it is Coors Field. Undefeated, as you always say. The over-under there tonight is 11 runs. Phillies slightly favored, but I'm going to take the under on Taijuan Walker just because, I kind of like Taijuan, but it's 13.68 points. At Coors, that just doesn't really jive with me. So I'm going to take the under on Taijuan Walker.
Yeah, the only caveat there is if he happens to pitch not great, but goes 5 innings and they get a win, he sneaks it out. But I haven't projected for fewer points. So I agree there. It's more understanding what a projection is and the chances, et cetera. But I certainly agree with the idea.
Yeah, I could see that because it is Gomber on the other side. Maybe you just think that even if Taijuan gets knocked around, he still gets the win.
I'll take that, but I haven't projected for 8.5 points.
That's it for Taijuan?
Yeah, so that to me is if you say it's over under 13, I have him for 8.5.
Yeah, I'm seeing the over under right now, and I just refreshed it.
Yeah.
13.68.
Yeah,
so.
I have it 8.5 points.
All right, so I'm going to take that one. Then I think I'm going to take the over on Dustin May. Now, mostly it's because the point projection is pretty modest, 15.61. And it is against the Padres, but it is at home in Dodger Stadium. Dodgers favored, minus 135. Over-under's 9. Blake Snell's been pretty brutal. Maybe you want to go on the Snell side and just take the under on him, but his over-under is only 11.54 on underdog. So I'm going to say Dustin May gets the win against these Padres, who just haven't really been clicking on all fronts yet. Soto's coming around, but for a guy like May who's such wicked stuff, I think Yeah, that could show up in any given day in any given matchup, and he can be just fine.
Haven't we been saying the Padres haven't been clicking for about 3 years now?
That's true. That's a
So
good
it
point.
seems, Anyway.
What do you think? I don't know what it is. I do think Soto's maybe being too selective and just kind of being too passive at the plate.
There was a thread, and I linked it in one of my recent pieces. Eno Saris was working with some people from the Athletic and showed that he used to take low and outside pitches and drive him over the shortstop's head for singles, maybe into the gap and left field. And it's not that he's rolling over on them and now he's just spitting on them and he's taking them. And even if we were to just go back to showing the ability to take the ball to left field, A, he's doing it, and B, maybe they don't pitch him as much in that area, we go back. But, this week he is turning it around. He's just too good a hitter not to. But we do need to keep in mind that Nationals Park is a great place to hit. Mm-hmm. So even when Soto has found himself again, the numbers will probably, will trail a bit what they were, just because Petco Park is a much harder place to hit.
So to recap our picks for Rival Fantasy tonight, Todd's picks: Trey Turner over, JT Realmuto over, Byron Buxton over, and my picks: Taijuan Walker under, Trevor May over. I'm still kind of a coward with just picking pitching because the hitting, I guess at Coors Field, it's pretty predictable.
Well, like I said,
hitting is so hard.
I'm putting, my try for the pitching is going to be a higher amount than my hitting, but I just thought it'd be fair to once in a while talk about hitting. So people, we're trying to publicize the site.
Of course.
We need to give when I talk pitching, I put batters in too, but I thought this week I would just mention my hitters.
I like that. Well, I'll tell you a little bit more right now about Rival Fantasy. A new MLB season means it's time for a new kind of daily fantasy baseball. Rival Fantasy is the fantasy platform reinventing the way daily and weekly games are played, and they've brought new games to the ballpark this year that fantasy players won't find anywhere else. Rival Fantasy's games include Fantasy Bingo, head-to-head player challenges, and Fantasy Book, which Todd and I were just talking about, where users can select over-unders for 2 to 5 players. With games like this, daily fantasy has never been better. Right now, RotoWire listeners can get a $50 protected first play. That means if you win your first play, you keep your winnings. But if you lose your entry, Rival Fantasy will fully refund you up to $50. Go to play.rivalfantasy.com/signup and use code RotoWireMLB at signup and deposit a minimum of $25 to get your first entry on Rival protected up to $50. Now's the time to step up to the plate and become a Rival today. Welcome to the arena. Yeah, join us over there. We're having some fun. Todd, shall we get into the 2-star pitchers for next week?
Yeah, why not?
Let's do it. So if you're new to this whole thing, definitely follow along with us on the site. These 2-star pitchers will change because the projected starters grid is constantly changing and evolving. So definitely check closer to the Sunday for a better idea of who's making 2 starts next week. But we will go through the projected starters grid at RotoWire. 0 to 5 scale for all these guys. A custom start date as May 15th, 2023. Merrill Kelly at Oakland at Pitt. Pretty good 2-step for Kelly, who's turned it around. So, tempted to go 4 here. What say you?
When you say turn it around, you mean this year? Because last year.
Yeah. No, he was off to a brutal start, wasn't he?
I don't know. Yeah,
I think he was just had. Let me see. He had. I guess he was never that bad this year. For some reason, I had in my head that he was really getting rocked earlier, but there was only a couple hiccups.
Yeah, no, he's not going to, one of those 12 strikeout, 7-inning games. He's just really steady. And these are two, all right, it's Pittsburgh, who's kind of scrappy, but I'm still not benching Merrill Kelly. It's not as good of a start as it was. I agree, a 4.
Charlie Morton at Texas versus Seattle, another pretty appealing one there. I think I'm going to put him on the, same tier as Merrill Kelly, where it's a kind of a boring arm, but good matchups, and probably overthinking it if you swap him out.
Yeah, no, I'm going to go 4. I think I have him ranked higher, or I will have him ranked higher than Kelly. He still gets more strikeouts. I saw him against the Red Sox this past week, and he's certainly, looked like he may have lost it, but has bounced back for the 3rd straight season. We always have an early tout tables. Who you're worried about? Someone always says Charlie Morton, and 3 weeks later they wish they hadn't said that. 3rd year in a row that's happened.
Of course, Grayson Rodriguez. He's got a ERA north of 5, but we like the stuff. We like the upside long term. Versus the Angels at Toronto next week. Same for Dean Kramer. Ooh, this one's tough. Grayson, I like, and I think I have him in my 12-teamer, the online championship. I don't really see myself sitting him down, so I think I'm going to go 3. It feels a little high off the tongue, but I'm going to go 3 on Rodriguez, and I think Dean Kramer's 4-1, huh? Maybe a 2 on Dean Kramer.
Little misleading on Kramer there.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to be -1 on each of those. I think I'm going to go 2 for Rodriguez and 1 for Kramer. Kramer's one of those guys that when you sit him, he's going to shove, and when you think he's going to do well, he doesn't. At least anecdotally, he seems to have that going. You mentioned, was it 4-1 or 3-1? 4-1. 32 strikeouts in 41 innings. That's not great. Or 41 and 2/3. 13 walks, 7 homers. I mean, 4.97 ERA. Yeah, no, he's I don't know his run support, but I'm going to guess it's high.
Yeah, good call. It's the record, as we all know, the record is not really reflective for a pitcher, but in Kramer's case, especially less so. No 2-star pitchers for Boston, but real quick, any expectations at all for James Paxton? He struggled on his rehab, so I'm kind of, fully in wait and see.
Yeah,
but
I expect to get hurt.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
unfortunate reality.
I don't know. Once Whitlock comes back, we got 7 pitchers. So it takes me some time to process the Red Sox having 7 starting pitchers.
Mm-hmm.
So, but once I kind of process that, I think best case scenario, Whitlock or Tanner Houck piggybacks with Paxton. I don't know who, and that's just me. I have no inside information or whatever. No one is pitching poor enough to be he's going down or going to relief. So it's going to be an interesting dilemma. We mentioned Bello really quickly. He's throwing that slider now, which is what if he threw a 3rd pitch? Well, he's starting to throw it. So we're going to get to see what if.
Absolutely. Jameson Taillon at Houston, at Philly. Can't do it. Is he a 0? Maybe a 1, but it's 10.
Both of these. Here's the thing. My spreadsheet's going to have them around a 2 because both of the offenses are underproducing. But Philly's starting to turn it around now. They're going to get better. Totally. And you hate to be at the expense of your guy. You know what? If it was home, maybe. But you know what? I'm going to go 1 just because I think there's something to be said for trusting that neither team is hitting right now.
Well, here's an interesting one. Tough call to make on Hunter Greene this coming week. At Colorado versus the Yankees in Great American Small Park. So it goes from Coors to Coors Light. Double fist in here this week for Hunter Greene. Would you recommend sitting him down? A guy that is going just after pick 100. Would you recommend fantasy managers take him out of their lineups this week?
All right, points leagues, no, because he's getting strikeouts, and you just, your ratios don't get hurt. Maybe you just don't accumulate as many points. It's a little early to say, well, if you're hurting in ratios, sit him. If you're not, that's more towards the end of the year. Wow. You know what? I think I could see sitting him. I'm not gonna. I don't think it's a mistake if you sit him. But there's too much context to make the decision. I have a feeling I'm going to have him ranked between 50 and 60, 50 and 65 because of the strikeouts bring him up that much. but that's a tough one. I don't have the decision, so I'm trying to think what would I do. I think sitting him is justified.
Same. I'm having a hard time saying that I feel like as somebody who works in this business that I should tell fantasy managers to take Hunter Greene out of the lineup, but I also feel like it's definitely one where I think I'd lean more towards sitting him. I don't want to say definitely sit Hunter Greene because he's at Colorado at home against the Yankees, but I would hope to maybe find somebody else if I could. I think I'm going to give him a 3 because it is Hunter Greene, but that's a really tricky one. Maybe 2. I'm going to go 2.
We're saying it is Hunter Greene, but he has walked 16 guys.
Yeah, he's so fastball heavy.
1.49 whip. I know that's somewhat of a hit rate that's a bit out of whack, but I'm going to give him a 1.
Just a 1, huh?
Yeah, I'm just because I think there's some blow up potential.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's scary. And again, I'm not saying that you definitely should take Hunter Greene out of your lineup, but I would consider it. Shane Bieber at the White Sox at the Mets. That's going to be a 5.
Yes, sir. Even though there's some issue, is he really adjusting to being a pitcher and not a thrower? There's a little bit of bumps in the road, but maybe this is the week that we stop worrying about that.
Connor Seabold's at home against the Reds and at Texas. That's going to be a 0 for me.
Yeah, you had me at Connor Seabold. You didn't have to go on.
Yeah. Next up, Lance Lynn. Now,
all right.
Oh man, I've gotten several wrong so far this year. Lance Lynn may be my biggest miss of all. I thought the way he finished last year was really encouraging. He's a 1-5 with a 7.51 ERA. Very few signs of hope. I guess there was that game a couple weeks ago where he took a no-hitter into the 5th, but then ended up with a horrible line. The Astros got to him, so I really don't know how to approach this one. What's your grade on Lance Lynn?
I'm probably more optimistic because I see 54 strikeouts to 17 walks and 44 1/3. I'm aware of that. It's a 3-to-1 ratio. I mean, I maybe wish the walks were a little bit lower. He walked 19 and 121 innings last year, but I mean, it's not horrible. I see 11 homers in 44 innings. That's not going to keep at that level.
That's crazy.
Not, and I see 54 hits in 44 1/3. Now, it's not all bad luck, right? He's throwing meatballs up there, but there is some hitting into bad luck, which maybe then kind of now you're working out of the stretch more and blah blah blah. So there's some regression coming. Now it's, do I sit him? I don't like sitting people when I expect regression to come because it can come at any time. So this is the week that it could. Regression doesn't care who you're playing, but the lesser skilled teams plus regression could have a couple of good performances. So Cleveland and KC at home, man, if you're not starting this week, drop them.
You talked about those home run numbers for Lynn, and also in the past you've talked about how it's important, in your opinion, to bring home runs down in terms of kind of neutralizing those with a style like XFIP. And his XFIP is actually an exact match for his career mark, 3.88. So you're right that I think Lynn's probably better than he's been. The home run numbers should regress, and
I mean, if this was at Colorado and at Yankee Stadium, I'd say sit him. But I think if you still believe that there's good stuff coming, you have to start. I'm going to give him a 3.
Yeah, but I'm going to give him a 3 too.
Yeah, I am starting him.
I guess if you've been riding Lance Lynn to this point, you just kind of have to throw him out there with the hope that this is the week that it kind of starts falling in line for him.
And you didn't get him wrong. He hasn't pitched very well.
Yeah, I didn't get it wrong. He's gotten it wrong so far. No 2-star pitchers for Detroit. They have 2 off days, but what a run Eduardo Rodriguez.
And I had forgotten I have him on my Labor team. I also have Brad Keller and Brady Singer, but yeah. I have him on my Labor team, and it's fun.
Nice hit.
You like you like the fact. All right, he injuries, but he took care of himself. The mental aspect of it, something I think we both appreciate, and he came back strong. And I like to see that. I don't think there should be a stigma. Rub some dirt on it and get back out there.
Absolutely.
So I like the fact he took care of some business and his pitching is as hoped.
Well, let's you and I take care of a little business. How's that for a transition?
Sounds like you want to step outside.
Oh, no. Yeah. A little Roadhouse. I saw they're remaking Roadhouse, by the way. That's like an MMA movie. God,
they're going to make it with Ronda Rousey as the star, but that was a couple of years ago. So I don't know if it's a different one now. I don't know.
Who's the guy in Donnie Darko?
Do not know.
Let me look this up real quick. Jake Gyllenhaal, that's who it is. So he's going to be playing the Swayze character as like an MMA boy. I don't know how I feel about that. But anyway, let's take care of a little piece of business. Knock out a quick word from our Blue Wire sponsors. Yes, we are back on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball podcast. Clay Link here with Todd Zola.
I don't know if you're looking at Twitter, but it took a couple of years in my new place. But they are talking about over-under. They are finally betting on the over-under the amount of sirens that go by my window during a podcast. And Jeff, thank you, has taken the over.
Well, I think the under might hit today. I don't know.
Well, it's
I haven't heard of many.
We still have a way to go.
Yeah, I might have jinxed this. Framber Valdez a 5, right? No real reason to get into that.
No.
Brad Keller, who you mentioned briefly, at San Diego, at the White Sox. I think I have him in a league, and
sorry.
Yeah, I don't. I guess I should have just swapped him out for like a reliever at this point, but.
Yep.
What, like a 1 for at San Diego at the White Sox?
Yeah, it's a 1. It's a 1 for me, and I admit a lot of my optimism was the pitching coach change and just things in general, and it still may manifest, but it may take some time. I'm also unhappy about Brady Singer, but Keller's the one with 2 starts this week. The White Sox offense is beginning to turn it around. The park is hard to pitch in. And even though we said San Diego is a bit down, I mean, any given game, Machado, Tatis, Soto, they can go goofy.
Yeah, and Shohei Ohtani's got one of those rare 2-star weeks for him, it looks like. All tentative. And actually, it seems like playing Ohtani, he's been great at the plate, too. Hard to know where to start him in a given week. But I think this week you start him at pitcher, right?
This year, I think, is the first year that you can have a legitimate conversation. I mean, he's always been a good pitcher, but this year, relative to the field, what he's done with pitching, I think you could. I mean, I think
relative to the field, he's been unbelievable.
Yeah, right. So, I think you can argue that. You can always argue it, but I think more people would be starting him at pitching this year. But anyway, yeah.
So, I might have to dig into our earned auction values too a little bit, because I would love to see which one has been more valuable. I assume it's the pitcher by a decent margin, but Ohtani as a pitcher compared to his hitting stats. But
yeah,
of course his hitting stats have been nice too, but just so darn good on the mound. At Baltimore at versus Min, it's going to be a 5, and then Syndergaard, man. I gotta imagine the leash is shortening on Syndergaard versus Minnesota at St. Louis. Same for Kershaw. Kershaw's going to be a 5, but
right.
I mean, there's no guarantee that if Syndergaard struggles in this first one, that even maybe they bring back Gavin Stone. So Syndergaard, I'm going to go with a 1.
I am as well, and for a while, it kind of looked like he's figuring it out, right? He's reborn. I can't think of the word. What I'm trying to say.
Rejuvenated
his career, born again. But now it's kind of gone back the other way.
Yeah, it hasn't been great. Versus Minnesota at St. Louis, we both are at a 1 on Syndergaard. Jesus Luzardo. I know you had quite a bit riding on Luzardo coming into the season. Been a little up and down, but versus Washington at San Francisco, you feel great about this. I'm going to go the 4 on the Jesus Lizard.
I will as well. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up as a 5 on my rankings.
Mm-hmm.
Skills down a tad, but I still think he is on the cusp of SB1dom. Not there, but on the cusp.
Yeah, by the way, somebody just mentioned Cody Senga in the chat, and we did not get to the Mets quite yet, but he actually doesn't line up for 2 next week, at least not that I'm seeing. Cody Senga, only Verlander for 2. But anyway, back up a couple of spots above the Mets, the Milwaukee Brewers. Eric Lauers lines up for 2. It's at St. Louis, at Baltimore. St. Louis has been really one of the big disappointments of the year. I hate going up against Tampa Bay with all those right-handed bats in there.
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's like a 2, but I may actually drop Lauer instead of, if I'm not using him, I'm dropping him. That's kind of obvious, but
it's
only a 2 for Lauer.
I don't say high hopes, but I was cautiously optimistic. I'm going to go with you with 2 as well. Maybe the Red Sox will soften up St. Louis and over the weekend, and Lauer can come in and clean up on Monday. But yeah, St. Louis is in town this weekend, so.
Bart mentioned in the chat too that as much as St. Louis has struggled so far, they've been hitting lefties all right. So
splits against lefties are so variable right now.
Yeah,
although
that's true.
I mean, you look at Arenado, Goldschmidt. I mean, on paper they should though, but splits against lefties in general, even at not the quarter pole, at a quarter of the way through the season, are still highly suspect.
Now, looks like the Twins let a real good one get away in Luis Arraez, but they did get Pablo Lopez, who's been pitching well, at the Dodgers, at the Angels. Tough little West Coast 2-step there for Pablo. Part of me wants to say 5 because I think he's kind of there, but it's a 4 with those matches.
Yeah, I mean, this is why they signed him. I mean, this is why they traded for him and signed him for to be a lead a rotation, against tough teams. So I'm going to go 4 as well. I'm going to be, kind of like peeking at the games, kind of like, not staring at them, but absolutely going to give him a 4.
Justin Verlander didn't really look like, prime Verlander, but he got the job done, certainly against the Reds. And now 2.25 ERA in his limited sample at Washington versus Cleveland. I'm going to give Verlander a 5 just because it's Verlander.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping he doesn't have the same issues that Scherzer has had.
I'm going to give him a 5 as well. And he showed up on my latest rest of season like a top 3 pitcher, because at this point you're just expecting him to pitch like every day, and that's his skills are now, they're the reason he was drafted lower is because of missing time. So I mean, he checks in as one of the top pitchers in the league right now.
Yeah, I'm with you. Hopefully, the injury issues are behind him and he's able to stay on the mound. Johnny Brito at Toronto, at Cincinnati, he's going to be a 0. Domingo Germán.
0's the lowest we can go.
Might dip into the negatives here.
I was like, you know what? I got to watch this Brito guy because Yankee Stadium's not so bad. The offense, didn't work out.
Now, Domingo Germán is the same tough 2-step at Toronto, at Cincy. And Cincy's not great, but it's such a small little bandbox park there. I might consider Domingo as like a 1.
I think him a 2 because I think New York protects him a bit, and they kind of have the length now to take him out after 5. I don't know. I don't see him getting lit up, primarily because I think he's taken out of the game. So I go 2.
Good point. So I got a 1 on Domingo Germán, but I got you down as a 2. Kyle Muller is going to be a 0 for Oakland.
I'm taking the L there too.
Well, look, we all have to take our shots late, and that's just one that didn't really work out.
Yeah, it's not even working at home, which is, I mean, he's only home once this week. But when will we be able to talk about Funky Cold Medina as a 2-start guy?
I like that.
That was from your era, right?
Well, a little before, but
Okay.
who was the guy who sang that song? He was in Ace Ventura, Pet Detective.
I actually quoted it in a recent Z Files, and I forget who it was.
Do you remember that guy being in Tone Loc?
Tone Loc. Yeah, Tone Loc.
Yep.
Yep.
Good song. All right, so Kyle Muller's a 0. Then Bailey Falter. I was thinking about dropping him in Derek Van Riper's Mocky League. Probably should have done it a long time ago, but to activate Eury Perez, I instead dropped Oscar Colas. So I had a couple dead spots. But Bailey Falter's 0-6 with a 5.75 ERA at San Francisco versus the Cubs. Look, you don't have to bank that 5.75 ERA if you pick him up. From here, would you consider rolling the dice on Bailey Falter this week?
Oh gosh, I think, and I kind of hinted this when we talked about his projection in the back end, in that I didn't want to adjust it too much because I think he's going to get better. But I've
seen him pitch a couple times, and I thought he looked okay. Sorry to jump in.
No, that's the thing. That's the kind of. I mean, we have an engine that takes care of it, but I think maybe we're a little too optimistic, so we did have to drop it a bit. I think I actually have him in a lot of places, so I can't. I think he would be. Not that we've seen a ton of players so far that I need to get this guy this week, but I could, in the 12-team league, I could see picking up Falter.
Yeah, it's kind of one where I feel like nobody's gonna really want him because the surface numbers are so bad. There's just so much stink there that maybe wouldn't be the worst thing to get him on a low cost bid. Bailey Falter. Maybe it's not so bad that I held on to him because that is a deep league in Derek's league. No 2-star pitchers for Pittsburgh. They got 2 off days next week. Then Seth Lugo for the Padres versus Kansas City versus Boston. I'd consider Lugo, and if I think I said a 1 on Falter. What did you say on Falter?
I said a 1.
Yeah. So if I'm going 1 on Falter, I'm going to go, I think, 2 on Lugo.
No, I agree. I think he's transitioned to back to starter. Mm-hmm. Don't love that.
Just not as big of a gap skills wise between those two as the surface numbers.
Don't love the Boston start, but it is in San Diego, so that's not a bad thing.
George Kirby, the guy who just never issues a walk. I love it.
Wow.
At Boston, at Atlanta.
We're both saying he's a 5, but we drop him for 4 to the max.
Yeah, exactly. I think. Look, I can't really see a scenario where I bench Kirby. Honestly, I don't even in like a 10-teamer.
I think he's a 5.
Yeah,
I think he's
gotten to that point.
Yeah, I think he's now matchup proof, and maybe he doesn't have a great week, but I think he's fine.
I think I'm finally done with Sean Manaea.
Yeah, that's what I saw that name and did the groan. I'm taking a lot of L's. My pitching, and this is the year I said, you know what? I'm not going to be that aggressive. I'm going to try to be safer with my pitching. And here I go, all these guys that I have wrong. Gosh, we should love this matchup. We should be talking about almost making this a 5, but we're talking about dropping them.
Yeah, I mean, 2 home starts against Philly and Miami. I guess I initially wrote down 0, but now I'm going to say a 1, even though I've been burned so many times.
He hasn't even pitched well against bad teams.
I know.
That's the thing is, you can't even say, well, good team. He hasn't. There have been a couple of games where, all right, this is it. This is his make good game. I'm going to give him a 1 as well, but gosh, in the leagues I have him, it's like if you don't do it this week, you're gone.
I'm tempted to go back to 0 because looking at his game log, he's he's
terrible.
6 outings, he's only made it out of the 4th inning once in his last 6 outings. So I'm gonna just stick with 1, but that's very much tenuous.
I was gonna say, he gave up only 1. Oh, wait a minute, he only pitched 1 1/3. That's why he only gave up 1 run.
Right. Jack Flaherty kind of got weirdly defensive about his fastball velocity this week. That was kind of strange. Versus Milwaukee, versus the Dodgers. We knew all those walks were going to catch up to Jack, and boy, have they. So These matchups, versus Milwaukee doesn't scare me. But I kind of feel like Flaherty is just like a 2 now.
I think that
think?
may be twice as high as it should be.
Yeah.
I'm going to give him a 2 out of respect, but I have not seen a whole lot that gives me encouragement. And that just feeds into what's going on with the Cardinals all right, it's hard to replace Molina, and can you rebuild when you have to keep him around? But, Flaherty was supposed to be an ace at this point. A couple players were supposed to develop more than they have. People are saying they don't have a plan. I think they had a plan that just didn't work out very well. And that sometimes happens.
Yeah, so you going 1 on Flaherty?
I'm going 1, and I'm not. He's not available, but I don't trust him right now, and I haven't seen anything that I like.
Jordan Montgomery, tough call as well. 4.11 ERA versus Milwaukee versus the Dodgers. I think he'll be a 3, but
I think I'm gonna go 3.6, so it raises up to a 4. I just think he just gets the job done.
Yeah, he's boring but steady.
I think he just gets it done.
Yeah.
He's had 2 rough outings at Chicago and Arizona. Otherwise, I think almost everything else has been a quality start. So I'm gonna go 4 because I think that's what he is. He's a contact type of guy that's gonna run into some bad outings, but I think more often than not he'll be fine.
What about Yanni Chirinos? He's been pitching well for Tampa Bay. Not a surprise, really, because they just keep churning out pitching. But 2.22 ERA at the Mets versus Milwaukee. I know he was scooped up in a lot of leagues last week, but if Yanni's still out there, I'm not saying get aggressive, but I definitely would try to pick him up. So I'm going to probably say 3.
Yeah, as you know, because you do the charts and help us out or help everything that Tampa and a couple other teams are starting to use their primary pitchers again.
Oh yeah,
they kind of got away from it last year, but they're back to it again. So whenever, always double check if if Weeks is starting, check to make sure it's not Fleming or whatever. I'm gonna go. I need to look more into Chirinos, so I'm gonna go with a 2, and say once I do my research, I may go to a 3. But right now, I'm gonna stick with a 2.
All right, I hear that. Well, Dane Dunning's been getting some love in the chat today. He lines up for versus Atlanta versus Colorado. He's been pitching really well, so probably a guy to at least have on the waterfall for sure, and definitely has some believers. I'm a little, I'm not completely sold, but with these matchups, even though Atlanta's tough, love Colorado at home. So I'm going to give Dunning a 3, I think.
19 strikeouts, 7 walks, and 31 1/3 innings.
Only 19 Ks and 31.
Yeah, no home runs, 20 hits. Now, as much as we said, I don't remember who it was, that you can't say it's all bad luck.
Lance Lynn.
You can't say this is all good luck either,
Exactly.
But still, no homers and 20 hits and 31 1/3. He's going to come up. He's going to come up. It's on the way.
Yeah, all that contact's going to catch up to him eventually.
At some point, or he has less contact. He strikes out more batters. Sometimes the skills improve too. Tough matchups. I'm going to go with 2. But all my point is, I know he's getting love in the chat. Come on, if you're in our chat, you're going to know at this point, surface stats are not the best place to look.
Absolutely. Now, Alec Manoah got a mention in the chat too today, and man, I just don't know what's going on with him. The slider is just not getting whiffs, and seems to have just abandoned him. So, just has not been anywhere close to the guy I was expecting, and hard to know exactly how to value him. It's versus New York versus Baltimore next week. Probably giving him a 3 because I'm stubborn. Is that too high on Alec Manoah?
I'm even more stubborn. I'm like he's better than this. He's going to be a 4.
The slider though just isn't there. It's weird.
Maybe he needs to throw a sweeper. I'm sorry. I'm going to go with 3, but in my head I'm thinking he's a 4. But no, maybe that's in my heart. I'm thinking he's a 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want him to be so much better than he's been. I'm rooting for the guy, but
so do my teams.
Yeah.
He might have a couple of keeper leagues.
Gaussman's a 5, obviously.
Yeah, he recovered from the Red Sox start. Who was he pitching against the other night? It was just Wheeler. He and Wheeler were just beautiful. Yeah. Pitching porn, if you like that sort of thing.
Patrick Corbin's going to be a 0 for me, but then Josiah Gray mentioned in the chat is maybe the best 2-star pitcher of the week.
Yeah,
he's not a 5 for me, but among the available options, here and there, I think Josiah Gray maybe he's still out there in some shallower leagues. If you can go out and get him, he'd be a top priority. Corbin a 0, Gray a 4 at Miami versus Detroit.
Yeah, those matchups you got to give him a 4. But again, surface stats: 40 strikeouts, 19 walks, 45 and 2/3. Although I was going to say he has picked up strikeouts lately, but they fell back down again. 3 whiffs in 7 innings. So I like the matchups. I like what I'm seeing for Gray. I've actually tweaked my initial expectations a little bit in his favor, but I don't want to go too overboard yet.
All right. Well, let's recap our 2-start pitcher grades for the week of May 15th, almost to the quarter poll. I'm kidding. I know that's one of your pet peeves. So we're almost a quarter of the way through the season, but we're not to the quarter poll until the 3/4 mark. Right?
Well, technically, it's a quarter of a mile left in the race. So that's only if the race is 1 mile, And I'm not a racing guy. I mean,
that's true. It's an analogy, but it's wrong when you say quarter mile at this stage or quarter pole at this stage.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's recap the 2-star pitcher grades for next week. Merrill Kelly a 4, Charlie Morton a 4, Grayson Rodriguez I say 3, Todd 2, Dean Kramer I say 2, Todd 1, Jamison Tyone 1, Hunter Greene I say 2, Todd 1, Shane Bieber 5, Connor Siebold 0. Lance Lynn, 3. Framber Valdez, 5. Brad Keller, 1. Shohei Ohtani, 5. Noah Syndergaard, 1. Clayton Kershaw, 5. Jesus Luzardo, 4. Eric Lauer, 2. Pablo Lopez, 4. Justin Verlander, 5. Johnny Brito, 0. Domingo Germán, I say 1. Todd, 2. Kyle Muller, 0. Bailey Falter, 1. Seth Lugo, 2. George Kirby, 5. Sean Manaea, 1. Jack Flaherty, I say 2, Todd 1. Jordan Montgomery, I say 3, Todd 4. Yanni Chirinos, I say 3, Todd 2. Dane Dunning, 3. Alek Manoah, 3. Kevin Gaussman, 5. Patrick Corbin, 4. Patrick Corbin, 0. Josiah Gray, 4. That would have been a bad one to mess up. Patrick Corbin, 0. Josiah Gray, 4. Well, great stuff today, Todd. Appreciate everybody who came through the chat. We had a lively chat discussion. Appreciate that. Anything else on your mind today?
Z-File's coming out. It's talking about rest of season projections. Check that out if you folks want. And maybe an early happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there.
Absolutely. Hope you enjoy Mother's Day, and everybody out there. Hope you keep the grind going. Still a long way to go this season, so don't get too down if you're struggling here and there. All right, guys. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you next week on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast, brought to you by Rival Fantasy.